Welcome back, scholars. We are now going to dive into today's lesson. And let's remember our annotation and discussion prompt for today is how is the description of Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life mentioned in the article Ancient Egypt, Women in Society similar or different to the book's description of Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life? We must write an ACE response, including evidence from both the book and the article. So in front of you, scholars, you should have your article, your T-chart or your chart, and your book. Again, our focus for today is to see how the description of Cleopatra and her life is similar or different from the article in the book. So, your chart on the left, we're going to write down our evidence to show how they describe Cleopatra's life according to the article. Then on the right, we're going to show how Cleopatra and her life was described based on the book. So let's start with our article first. I want you to look at the article and go down to the section that says Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony. I'm going to give you 1 minute to kind of skim through and reread and highlight or annotate, underline evidence that shows how they describe Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life. Now, let's remember, this is not our first time reading this. So, we're going to go back and do a reread, and we're looking this time for specific evidence. How did they describe Cleopatra? How did they describe her life? We're not writing just yet. We're just finding our evidence. You have 1 minute. Let's go. So, scholars, now that you have just finished identifying and annotating for evidence that helps us understand how the article described Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life, it is now time for us to write. We're going to take 1 minute, and you should be writing under the caption Cleopatra in the article. Again, we're going to take 1 minute. You're writing based off the evidence that you have found only in the article. We're not thinking about the book just yet. You have 1 minute. Let's go. Fifteen seconds. So, scholars, we have written what we feel or how we feel the article described Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life. Now we need to go find evidence in our book. So, scholars, I have listed 5 really great places to find evidence. I want you to take a really quick look at my screen. I have chapter 1, Birth of a Queen. Chapter 5, Devotion and Disaster. Chapter 7, Passion and Politics. Chapter 8, Life of Fun and Frolic. And Chapter 10, Two Wives and the Empire Restored. At this time, scholars, I want you to just pick one. All right, you got it. You got the one. All right, so now that you have that one, I want you to go into your book and we're looking for evidence. All right, you're looking for evidence. How is this book describing Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life? Now, scholars, let's remember, we're not writing just yet on our chart. We're in our book looking for evidence to see how the book describes Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life. Let's go. 1 minute. Okay, so scholars, you have now just highlighted, underlined, and identified the evidence that you would like to use. It is now time for us to write about that evidence. So many of us may have chose different chapters to read. So this is the first thing I want you to do. On your chart, go ahead and write down which chapter and what page you're using your evidence from. All right, so now that you have that down, we're now going to take 1 minute and you're actually writing your evidence. Yes, you can paraphrase. Tell us, help us better understand, how did the book characterize and describe Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life? You have 1 minute. Let's go. All right, scholars. So now that we have written it down, I want you to look at the screen one more time. I want you to find a second chapter to go in and identify evidence from. So find a second chapter. It cannot be the exact same chapter you just chose. So choose a new chapter. All right, you got it? I want you now to go into that chapter. Look for evidence. How does this book describe Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life? You have 1 minute. Let's go. All right, scholars, so now that you have identified that piece of evidence, yes, it is time for us to write about it. So I want you now to label or tell where you got the evidence from. So if you chose chapter 5, go ahead and write chapter 5. All right, now it's time for us to write our evidence. You will have 1 minute. Let's write our evidence. All right, scholars. So in front of you on your chart, you should have a piece of evidence from the article and 2 pieces of evidence from the book. Now remember, in our task today, you must use a piece of evidence from the article and a piece of evidence from the book. You guys should be able to make this ACE paragraph really juicy because you have 2 pieces of evidence from the book. Right? We're moving. Yes, let's walk through our ACE response. So, the first thing we need to do is write a claim. When we write our claim, we must answer the prompt. How is it similar or different the way that the article talks about Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life from the book that we actually read? So, scholars, I am going to give you 1 minute. You are writing your claim. Remember, in your claim, you're letting us know if it's similar or if it is different. You have 1 minute. Let's go. All right, scholars, so now that we have completed our claim, I need to remind you, you must have context. We're going to skip over context in this video, but be sure to add context in your ACE response. The next thing we're going to do is give evidence. Now, I'm being very, very specific. We're giving evidence from the article. So go back and look at your chart. Look at your evidence from the article. How does your evidence from the article support your claim? At this time, I want you to write out your evidence. Be sure that the evidence that you're giving actually supports your claim. What I mean is, if you said it's similar, then make sure that your evidence in your article supports the claim that it is similar. Also, make sure the evidence from the book is actually similar to the evidence you're using in your article. So, scholars, at this point, I want you to write out your evidence. Remember, this evidence must come from the article. Again, this evidence is coming directly from the article and it must support your claim in explaining if it is similar or if it is different. You have 1 minute. Let's go. It's 30 seconds. All right, scholars, so you have just completed your evidence from the article. Now, I need to make this announcement. Scholars, I want us to take a strong stance. Either we feel it is similar or we feel that it is different. We are not going to argue it is both similar and different. No way. I want you to make sure that you are either saying it is similar or it is different, and the evidence that you use supports your claim in it being similar or different. Let's move on to our evidence from our book. Now go back to your chart and look at the evidence that you have. Now you have two pieces of evidence to kind of choose from. Can you use both? Absolutely, if they both support your claim or support your claim. So scholars, I want you to take this minute, write out your evidence, and this evidence is coming from the book. It's coming from, yes, from the book. You have 1 minute. Let's write. 15 seconds. All right, scholars. So you have completed your evidence from the book. And what time is it? Analysis time. So, scholars, you are going to create your analysis using a hired word and making an inference or a by or because statement. So, at this time, I want you to think, what hired word am I using? How am I going to relate my analysis back to the claim that I made? Now, remember, we're not arguing that it's both. We are taking a very strong stance on saying it is either similar or different. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write your analysis. Let's go ahead. Minute is on the clock. Let's rock it out. All right, scholars, so you have now just completed your analysis. In front of you, you should have your chart that has evidence from the book and evidence from the article. You should also have a claim that has been written out that shows or explains if it is similar or different. You should have evidence from the article and evidence from the book. You should have a full written analysis. Now, as you answer your exit ticket, remember you need to add context. In the end, you should have your claim or argument, context, two pieces of evidence, and an analysis with an inference or a buyer because statement. We're moving. All right, scholars. So, as a full recap, your exit ticket is: how is the description of Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life mentioned in the article, Ancient Egypt, Women in Society, similar or different to the book's description of Cleopatra and Cleopatra's life? Write an ACE response, including evidence from the book and the article. Scholars, you are almost finished with your exit ticket. So definitely go in, sprinkle in some perfection, write your context, and click submit by 10 p.m. Also, scholars, do not forget to complete 30 minutes of Lexia. Cannot wait to read your responses. I will see you on tomorrow.